I call the Patton Township Board of Supervisors meeting on March 13th, 2024 at 5:30 to order. We welcome all, especially new Patton Township residents, to the Patton Township community, a place for all. As you are able, please rise and join the board to the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is announcements. Amy, do we have any announcements?
We do not have any announcements.
Okay. No announcements. Next on the agenda is public comment. Residents, taxpayers may address the board on issues of interest to the township. Comments related to a specific agenda item should be deferred until that point in the meeting. If you are attending by Zoom, please use the raise hand feature of the Zoom application and wait for the chair to indicate that it is your opportunity to speak. If you are attending in person, please approach the podium and wait for the chair to indicate that it is your opportunity to speak. Public comments are limited to 5 minutes per person. Are there any public comments at this time?
I don't think so. There's no one on Zoom.
All right, seeing none, next on the agenda is presentations and public hearing. The first is the proclamation, Women's History Month. Betsy.
Q, that's it. Recognizing March as Women's History Month. Can everybody hear? It sounds funny in my ears. Whereas Congress in 1987 established the month of March as Women's History Month to celebrate and affirm the importance and countless contributions of women and girls who have fought tirelessly and courageously for equality, justice, and opportunity in our nation. And whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also at the forefront of every major progressive social change movement in history, paving the way for future generations. And whereas countless women, most of them forgotten in history, sacrificed and worked tirelessly for equality with the vision, action, and determination of the next generation of women and girls. And whereas each woman is extraordinary in her own way, women of every age, race, ethnicity, and economic background have made historic and significant contributions, providing that women working in science, technology, business, labor, education, governance, and more maintain a critical role in every segment of society. And whereas the theme of Women's History Month 2024 is celebrating women who advocate for equality, diversity, and inclusion. And whereas this theme recognizes women who understand the need to eliminate bias and discrimination from individuals' lives and institutions. And whereas Women's History Month is a milestone that will continue with the next generation of extraordinary women and girls and a legacy of many women who were denied the right of freedom and equality, and in which many suffered and others paid the ultimate price. And whereas we stand on the shoulders of those courageous women with pride, dedication, gratitude, and a sense of purpose. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Patton Township Board of Supervisors does hereby proclaim March as Women's History Month, honoring the contributions made by women and girls everywhere for their outstanding achievements and invaluable contributions to society.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve the proclamation?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Discussion. The only discussion there is thank you, every woman. Thank you. You are unsung heroes, and we see you, all of you, and acknowledge each and every one of you. So And to our CNET crew, thank you. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The proclamation is approved. Thank you all. Next on the agenda is the proposed ordinance 2024-635, adopting the codification. Amy, you want to take that?
Sure. So we've been working with General Code since 2022 to update our code of ordinances. General Code, township staff, the board, and the planning commission work together to review our ordinances and to update the language as needed. We did advertise the ordinance, the recodification ordinance, for adoption at this evening's meeting. So if you're ready, you can convene a public hearing and then take action on it.
Okay. I now open the public hearing. Any questions or comments on the codification? It is now open for questions or comments from the public. Okay. Seeing none from the public, I am now closing the public hearing portion. Any questions from the board? Elliot?
I just wanted to move approval of this so you can get to the discussion.
Okay. Second?
I guess I seconded it. I think that was a motion.
Discussion?
Elliot's move up to the mic.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. I thought I could find it here real quickly. I just made a note of it. I'm not sure what page. It is, let me go back to item, let's see, it's chapter 244 of parks. And I thought I could find it on the code. But is there a need to include Marjorie Seward Park? And Ken, I'm looking at you and that, well, I know you're not in charge of that now, but.
So we could actually do that. We don't need to do this specifically with this
Okay.
codification.
You found it,
We
okay.
did pass an ordinance recently that added the Marjorie Seward property into the open space properties that we have.
Okay.
So we can catch that in a
Okay,
future
gotcha.
update.
That was
Yep.
the only thing I saw. Okay, wasn't sure. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions, Supervisor Whitman?
No.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The ordinance 2024-635 is adopted. Moving right along, next on the agenda is public safety, the monthly report. Chief Jolly.
All right, good evening, everyone, and thank you very much. A copy of the February Public Safety Report is included with your agenda materials. You'll note that our officers stopped 273 vehicles. We wrote 51 traffic citations, 19 parking tickets, handled 22 criminal arrests. And our bike patrol was out and pedaled 8 miles and checked 16 businesses. Under department notes, there was a 20-year-old female who was charged with theft by unlawful taking and receiving stolen property. She had found an unattended purse in a parking lot of a township business. She picked that up and removed about $1,000 worth of cash and then deposited that in the garbage along with the rest of the contents of her purse, never notifying any authorities that she had found that. 30-year-old female was charged with DUI and possession of methamphetamine. The woman was found passed out and slumped over her steering wheel while in her car, parked in a township parking lot. The officers arrived and woke her up. She failed field sobriety tests, was placed in custody for DUI. Canine Graf was summoned to the scene, and he alerted on the vehicle that there was narcotics present. So a search warrant was secured for the vehicle, and several containers of methamphetamine were recovered from the vehicle. So she was also charged with those. A 40-year-old male was charged with simple assault and harassment, and those charges stem from a domestic dispute with the male where he threatened a family member with a knife. 13 arrests were made for retail theft, 1 for minor's law, and 2 for driving under the influence. The officers served 14 of the 18 warrants they attempted, and we conducted 50 vacation home checks. We did use force during one incident during the month of February. An officer was actually trying to break up a loud party, and a resident directed his attention to a physical fight between 2 females in a parking lot, unrelated to the party. The officer approached the 2 females, giving verbal commands to stop fighting, but they ignored him and continued to engage in their physical fight. So the officer had to physically pull the female off of the other female that was on the ground in order to break up the fight. There were no injuries reported from any of the parties involved in that. Under community relations, Officer Snyder and K-9 Graff did a K-9 demonstration for a Girl Scout group. Officer McCaslin conducted a ride-along for a township resident. Sergeant Shapanko gave a presentation about first responders to a Boy Scout pack. Our officers were busy conducting foot patrol during State Patty's Day weekend, making sure that the complexes were under control. We also provided a police presence at the Happy Valley Comic and Collectibles Convention, which was held out at the center out by the airport. Officer McCaslin also gave a presentation about drugs and driving under the influence for a Boy Scout pack, and Officer Sunderland installed 2 child safety seats for a township resident. Under training and department activities, our officers attended their tactical response team training. Officer Snyder and K-9 Graff completed their required 2 training days for the month. Again, in order for them to stay certified by law, they have to train at least 16 hours per month.
Wow.
So it's pretty intense training. We go to Blair County and train with the canines that they have over there. Officer Schaefer completed Police Officer Supervisor in Service training, usually the acronym POSIT for that training, which was preparing him for his promotion to sergeant, which we just had just a few days ago in this room. So, and I mentioned this last month, but just again, our officers did complete most of the yearly in-service training as required by MOPEC to keep them certified. I attended a Humane Officer meeting, the Center County Chiefs meeting, and also the Community and Campus in Unity meeting. Another outreach that Officer Snyder and K-9 Graff did, they stopped by and visited the dispatchers at the 911 center. So we have a nice photo of Officer Snyder and Graff inside. So you kind of get an inside look there of what the dispatchers are looking at. So they have a lot of screens and a lot of things going on for their job. But just to give them a little bit of an idea of the capabilities of our K-9 and kind of what they have to offer. So if the 911 center does receive any questions or requests about them, then they have the information needed. So a good outreach by Officer Snyder there. Next, we have some photos submitted by the Park Forest Elementary School. This was actually posted on Facebook, recognizing Officer Brad Tuskovich, who is our school resource officer for National School Resource Officer Day, which was held on February 15th. So again, recognizing all the hard work, dedication, outreach, education that Brad does for the schools there. So it's very nice of them to acknowledge him and his hard work. I'm not going to read the entire letter, but we got a very nice letter from an individual who was house sitting for her family member for a house in Patton Township, and ended up being locked out of said house. So she encountered a little bit of an issue. Eventually, after exhausting all her resources, contacted the police. Officer Rob Carter responded, and she was tremendously impressed with his empathy and compassion and the help that he provided her to get her through that crisis moment she had. And eventually she was able to get in, so we were happy to get her in. Now we did receive just a card again from a community member, somebody that the officers have dealt with on a call, just thanking again the officers for their day-to-day, the heroic work that they do for the community and all the hard work they do for the residents of Patton Township. Lastly, we just have our calls for service, 433 in the month of February. That's down from the 495 that we handled in January. 87 of those were school checks and 44 were traffic related. And that completes my report.
Thank you, Chief, and continue to thank all your officers for a great job. Thank you. Next on the agenda is the proposed changes to the pending and soliciting ordinance. Amy, want to bring us up to date on that?
Sure. So last month, the board expressed its support for further exploring the creation of a Do Not Knock program. So we did a little bit of research looking at similar programs in Bellefonte, Cranberry Township, Butler County, and Kennett Township, Chester County. So based on what we found, we'd like to suggest some framework for the program and get your feedback on that. So first, the program would be voluntary and would only apply to a residential property within the township. The program would also only apply to commercial solicitations and would not include a nonprofit, religious, political, or other solicitations from entities that are exempt under state or federal law. That's because we're not allowed to include them. Residents would be required to enroll annually in the program. This would ensure that the list is as up-to-date as possible. We do have a bit of a transient community, so that could change when properties change and people can decide. We'll create some kind of a reminder system to make it easier for residents to renew their address with us. The term of our soliciting license, we probably want to change that. Right now it's a year. We were talking about changing it to 6 months. This would help keep our vendors up to date with the status of the do not knock list, so they're pulling the most recent information. We talked about, the chief and I talked about putting the do not knock list on our website. I looked at Cranberry Township is a much bigger township than we are, but I looked at their website and it's a long list, but we talked about if there was a way to do that, we would try to do that. It's just be the addresses, and that would make it a little bit easier. We would also start posting on our website a list of the vendors who've received soliciting licenses along with when they expire. Because I know a lot of times residents see a solicitor come through their neighborhood and they don't know if they're legitimate, and this would be a way they don't have to call the police, they can pull it up on our website and check. And under this Do Not Knock program, no soliciting signs would not be needed for homes that are enrolled in the program. So a violator of the Do Not Knock program would actually have their license that they get from the township to solicit revoked immediately, but would not be subject to possible prosecution under the trespassing laws. Residents still would have the option, they wouldn't have to be in the Do Not Knock program to do this. They can still post no soliciting signs on their property, and in that case, if someone comes to their door and knocks, they would call the police department, and then they could be subject to prosecution under trespassing laws. So we went through our current peddling and soliciting ordinance, and it's funny because I think almost every community in Pennsylvania adopted some version of this ordinance in the 1970s, so they're all a little out of date. So we went through and proposed some changes and included them. I'll just hit some of the highlights. One of them was not requiring persons under the age of 18 who are taking orders for delivering newspapers, greeting cards, and candy, or who are representing a scouting organization to have to get a license. Adding language to clarify that the license applies only to commercial transactions. On the administrative side, right now it says the township manager should issue the license. It's actually the chief of police who's doing that, so we'll clean that up. Prohibiting soliciting on Sundays or legal holidays that are recognized by the state of Pennsylvania, and adding language about the Do Not Knock program and what happens if you knock on a door of a Do Not Knock program. So we wanted to get feedback, and if you're comfortable, we can put together an ordinance for you to consider. You know, either it's your next meeting or in your April meeting, or if you want us to change some things, we can work on that as well.
What's the board's pleasure on that? Any comment? Supervisor Whitman?
I have a comment. I read through the ordinance pretty carefully. I looked for the word political. It's not there. I suggest just adding the word political. And specifically, it's the clause that says, the following are not deemed solicitors, and it says, refers to patriotic act, but doesn't say political.
Okay.
Let's just get it out there. I just add that too. You have political in your notes here in the agenda, so yeah, just added that. Looks good.
I would like to hold off and give the board an opportunity to just digest what we have just gotten.
Sure.
You know, and just put it on our
April 10th agenda?
Yeah.
Yep, I can do that.
Is that okay with the board?
Yes.
Supervisor?
I'm trying to figure out what we would need to adjust. I mean, if they draft a proposed ordinance. What were you drafting? Sorry.
So we can put together, so right now I just redlined our
See,
existing
that's what I'm
ordinance.
saying.
I could actually put together for you to look at next meeting if you want the actual ordinance language, just so you could see what it would look like. And then we can flesh out a little more of the program guidelines, and then you could review it all one more time, and then we could possibly consider action at the April 10th meeting if you're
Yeah.
comfortable.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Is that okay with you, Supervisor?
Yeah, I just thought it would help, like, if they
Yeah.
draft something for us to look at, that would be good.
No, I knew she was adding some things, and we need to look at it before then. Is that okay with you now? Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with
It's
that.
okay
but
with
I'm
that?
okay
The
with
rest of the board? April 10th? Okay. Thank you, Amy.
Yep.
April 10th. All right. Next on the agenda is Public Works Operations 2024 Overlay Project.
I'll take that one if you want me to, Ken.
Go ahead.
Okay. So the 2024 operating budget contains $288,055 to pave North Oak Lane from Galen Drive to Douglas Drive. We put this out on pen bid, and this was an experiment. We did this earlier to see if we would get more bidders and better prices, and that was a rousing success from our side. We got 5 bids received for the project. The lowest bid was submitted by Glen O'Habaker in the amount of $222,160. We gave you a copy of the bid packet in the agenda. Michelle Marrow, our consulting engineer, recommends awarding the bid to Glen O'Habaker.
Okay. Any questions for our township manager? If not, can I get a motion?
So moved, oh,
Okay,
so moved. I just spoke up. I didn't look at the hand. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Elliot.
I'm sorry, second,
Second.
discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, Alex.
Supervisor Magruder?
And again, just for my own learning, when they submit their bids, they're not looking at what other people have submitted?
No,
They're
they
sort of like
submit,
doing-
it's a blind
doing this
process.
in isolation? Okay.
You okay? You all right? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes to award the 2024 overlay project to Glenn Hallbaker in the amount of $222,160. Okay? All right, next on the agenda is engineering, planning, and zoning, rezoning request for 474 and 480 Douglas Drive.
So I'll take this and then Ken can chime in with some of the history. We received a rezoning request from Mr. Sam Hallbaker for the properties at 474 Douglas and 480 Douglas. Mr. Hallbaker's request is to rezone the properties from R2 low density to office buffer district. We put a copy of the request and the map in your packet. Ken, if you want to speak to a little bit of the history of this property, that would be great, because this is not the first time this request has been made.
No, this property's been up for rezoning 4 times. Matter of fact, it transcends generations in the Hallbaker family. J. Alvin Hallbaker was the first to request the rezoning on this property. And then his son Sam had made the request this is the 3rd time now after that. So it was requested for commercial the first 2 times by themselves. The 3rd time it was brought in with the adjacent properties in blue. And at that time, I believe going back through, the board had said go back and look at some other districts potentially to come back and ask about. And that's what Mr. Hallbaker has brought back now, is the request to look at this for the office buffer zoning district.
Okay, any questions? Supervisor Abrams?
At the time of the most recent one, there was some talk that people felt that what they built there instead was kind of retaliatory because it was a different type of structure than had originally been intended. But there's no way of proving that, and it's meaningless now. And I don't know why I brought it up, but it's part of the history.
Any other? Supervisor Whitman? You have a question?
Well, I'd just add to what I remember was the, maybe in conversation that I had with Jeff Luck, but at one of the applications for rezoning, there was a great hue and cry from neighbors on Douglas Drive, so I'm well aware of that.
Okay, any other questions from supervisors?
Did you say something?
I was just asking about the 2 houses, but I think I've been here for all but one of the rezoning requests, so, and I recall the last time it was done in tandem with the property across the street that has since been rezoned commercial. I recall that had come in and this came in right after that. And we had the planning commission look at all of them together, is my recollection again. I could be wrong.
Okay. My suggestion is to forward it to the planning commission for their review. Anybody else have any questions on that? Does that sound okay with the board?
Just one thought on that. I think that's the correct thing to do. I think that maybe we could ask the Planning Commission to also look at that corridor out there to see if there are any other changes we want to make, because I don't want to get into a situation where we're in spot zoning, but I do want to look at the long-term, viability and health of that corridor, because that is sort of coming out of the, 99 corridor, it's sort of the industrial area. So we can look maybe long-term at what we want to do out there.
And have them do the review and get back
Yep.
to us, fine.
Yep.
Yeah, that's, I was
Thank
thinking
you.
of that.
Any questions on this? Supervisor Abrams?
I think actually the surrounding property owners were questioned about their feelings about this, and it was almost universally opposed by them. Now, maybe I'm wrong about that, but that might be, if everybody in the neighborhood would like to have that, we should know that too.
Yeah, we'll definitely reach out to the residents out there.
Any other questions on that? Right.
It's a challenging piece of property. Yes.
Okay, next on the agenda is administration. Proposed ordinance 2024-632, amending the Regional Human Relations Commission regulations.
It's right on the
Amy, you want to take that?
Sure. So this came from State College Borough. They asked Patton and Ferguson to amend our Regional Human Relations Commission regulations to make some minor changes. They all relate to procedural matters, including how complaints are reported, the investigation process, and the timelines for response. And it also gives the municipal managers a little bit longer to prepare the administrative procedures for implementation. It gives us till July 1st. So if you're comfortable, this could go for public hearing March 27th.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. March 27th? Public hearing.
Do you want to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to have a public hearing on March 27th regarding the Human Relations Commission regulations.
I'll
Can I-
second.
All right, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so we can public the March 27th as public hearing. Great. Next on the agenda is the 2024 board works items. Amy, you want to explain?
So we sent out an email to the board back in January to rank your possible work items for 2024. So I'll just briefly read the topics. I won't go into great detail. The first one was some open space preservation options. Second one was regulating special events on public property. Third one was home occupations. Fourth one was dissolving the various authorities that we have. We still have a water authority and an industrial development authority. Next one was adopting a workforce housing ordinance. And the last one was attaining B-City USA certification. So based on the rankings, and I heard back from 3 of the 5 board members, the highest priority was noted as adopting the workforce housing ordinance, and this has also been placed on the Planning Commission's 2024 work plan, and would be something I would envision you all working together on. The medium priorities were regulating special events on public property and reviewing the home occupation regulations, and then also the authorities dissolvement. And the lowest priority was attaining B-City USA status. So based on the results of the survey, I would recommend that you set your workforce housing ordinance as your highest priority. That's going to be a heavy lift, but I think we'll get a lot of help from Missy at the Center County Housing and Land Trust, and also from our other neighboring municipalities who have regulations. And then the authorities dissolvement, which is really a staff level item, and I think was started at one point. I think the staff, we could finish that for you and take that over the finish line. And the special events regulations, I know there was some sentiment about wanting to have this in place because we're in an election year. State College Borough and Harris Township both have special event regulations. I don't believe College or Ferguson do. So we, at a staff, can pull those regulations and bring them back and have a discussion with you to see if that's moving in the direction you want to go. I think the Borough of Gettysburg also has one, so I can pull from some others as well.
The county has a
The county has one too? Okay.
Great.
Yeah, so if you're comfortable with that, we can sort of start moving forward with some of these items.
Okay,
Sounds good.
sounds good. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, thank you, Amy. Next on the agenda is consent.
Or, no,
Oh, sorry.
managers.
All right.
Amy's been waiting all night.
I'm sorry, Amy.
You gotta pull up the other one.
Bill right
Go ahead, Amy. Next on the agenda is discussion of the manager residency requirement.
So both my contract and the township manager ordinance requires residency within Patton Township within a certain number of time. I think I had a year. I've been looking for a home with my fiance since last summer, and I'm having a lot of difficulty finding options within the township within my price range. Our price range basically puts us in Park Forest, which is a very desirable place to live, and so we're constantly getting outbid on homes, which is becoming frustrating. So I did a little bit of research. We're one of the last, so the center region is one of the last places left that still has residency for their managers. The southeastern part of the state, the south central part of the state, and the southwestern part of the state either don't have residency or they require, my friend is the manager in Susquehanna Township, which is in Dauphin County. He has to live within 10 miles of his municipal building. So I would like to propose that perhaps, if you could waive the requirement to say that I have to live within the center region, that would make my life a lot easier because then I would have more options. And the center region is also close enough that it's not like I'm going to be traveling 25 minutes to get to work. I mean, I do live in Harris Township now, and it takes me 10 minutes every day to get over here, and I don't have any problems coming over here in the winter. So I just would like to ask if you would be okay with waiving my residency requirement. It's so uncomfortable. Because I'm committed to Patton Township. I just can't find a house.
That's fine. Any comments on Betsy Dupree, our solicitor?
Yeah, I would just chime in here and say you have the board, and Elliot probably has the most history. You've waived this before, not once but twice for your former manager, once coming in and then again. And I think it would be prudent, if the board is so willing to waive it now, to also have direct staff to look at this ordinance and consider whether we might want to think about maybe a mileage requirement. I would just note for the board that we went through this issue, I believe you were not chief at the time, with our police officers who at one point had a more restrictive requirement, and we've gradually moved that out as well. And so I think looking at maybe a mileage requirement or something might be more realistic for this, and considering what we see in other townships around, even just around the region and requirements, I think it's something to consider. So it'd be my recommendation. Yeah.
Supervisor Abrams?
I agree with the recommendations of our solicitor.
I second that. Any other question from the board on? I'm sorry.
That's fine. The reason for maintaining the requirement.
So I think what happened, and this happened everywhere, right? When city managers were hired, they wanted them to live within the community that they served because then they had a level of commitment to that community. And then, of course, also back in the very olden days when there wasn't infrastructure, you could get to your township building if there was some kind of a disaster, or you would be in the community if something happened. I would say that it's, I had a residency requirement in Harris Township, and when I was interviewed here, I indicated I didn't mind it. And I don't mind it. It's just the housing market is so difficult that it makes the residency requirement difficult. And that's why, in the southeastern part of the state around Philadelphia, all of those mainline townships have done away with it. And they just say you have to be within, of course, there's traffic considerations, they're within a mileage area. So I think a lot of the concerns were just that they wanted you to be invested in the community, but things have changed with infrastructure and being able to get places. And I would argue that I'm probably still just as invested in this community if I live here or if I live in Ferguson Township.
I don't have a problem.
Yeah,
Any other?
I'd echo I think it's historic, right? I think, and I take it back now, Larry, to our police conversations. I think it was historic there because we didn't have I-99, right? So if we had a police officer who lived in Tyrone before I-99, it would take them a lot longer. Now, if they live in Tyrone, they can get here faster than somebody who lives on the West End, right? Or lives over on the far side of Ferguson. So I think it's a function of archaic sort of, we used to be very small and localized, and now we're much broader. It's obviously a board policy decision as to the question of, do you want your manager to be living in your community and paying, if you will, paying the same price that your residents pay? On the other hand, your manager isn't a voting member, right? It's the elected officials that need to be the ones that live in the community where they're setting the regulations and the taxes.
And thanks for that explanation. Yeah, I just think it's helpful for like rationale for why we're doing things, to understand like context, and it's important for, people looking into this stuff to realize a lot of the ways in which we're operating are based on very arcane, historical, sometimes ahistorical things that are occurring, and so it's helpful to have that context.
Thank you. Any other question from the board? Will we go with the recommendation of our solicitor?
Yep.
So,
Want to make a
can
motion?
I get a motion?
Yep.
So
Elliot, go ahead, you had your hand up
I'm
first.
sorry. Supervisor Abrams,
So moved.
second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, moving
Do
past?
you want to have mileage?
Yes.
So should
I
we
think
waive
what
it?
you want to do is grant
Wait.
Amy the waiver she needs now and direct
yeah.
the staff to look at the
Yeah.
ordinance and come back to you. Because we do have an ordinance
Yeah.
on the books, which I think we really ought to update.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
so I think it's really granting her waiver here and then directing staff to get you a new ordinance.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The waiver passes. And we'll look into the mileage. Thank you. Next on the agenda,
And don't be stopping your efforts to come join us.
I'm
over
not,
here.
I am not. I promise.
It's like the
olden
per-
days when in the 80s, when we used to have to use horse and buggy.
Horse and buggy.
I mean, I remember that. I was an '89 baby. I was in a kind of Stoga wagon back there, just wailing.
all right, gang, I got to pull you back. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any items to be added or removed from the consent agenda? If none, can I get approval to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second,
Second?
discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda is passed. Next on the agenda is management report, manager's report.
So I'll give you a written report at our next meeting. I'll probably just do a written report once a month because that makes it a little bit easier. But I do have just two things. Number one, with our Community Diversity Conference sponsorship, I believe we get 2 people that get to go to the conference. So I just need to know who wants to go so I can send that check in. And then number two, if you were following the school board at all this week, they discussed the Park Forest Middle School. And they've honed in on a location, which is the option number 2 in their materials. I spoke with the business administrator today, and he's encouraged that, I know Susan is our representative to the steering committee that they have, but he's also encouraged that we should also be attending the community forums coming up, and I believe they'll be trying to schedule a meeting with staff to discuss some more of the nitty-gritty kind of details. They're expected to vote on that location, I believe, at their meeting on March 25th.
Where's that?
It's across
It's
this.
Cross Valley Vista.
So did they send out something for those meetings yet, or no?
No, I don't think they've had another steering committee
Okay.
meeting.
Just make sure I didn't miss it.
Yeah, so Mr. Brown said they'll vote on that, I believe it's March 25th at their meeting, and that property across the street is going to have some traffic things we're going to have to talk about and some other things. So we'll want to stay engaged in the process moving forward.
That's the one that they chose, the one across the street.
Yeah, I think it gives them the best option,
I agree. I think that was the best option.
and it's the least disruptive to the students, because I think the timeline is like a 3-year timeline to get the school constructed.
Yeah.
Okay, so they'll keep us posted on the date that they want us to.
Yeah, I will make sure that you guys know about the next community forum that they
Right.
have.
Thank you.
Elliot-
Anything else?
Elliot has a question.
I don't know if we ever changed our minds about this, but I think we passed the idea of a bicycle connection to Valley Vista Drive at Douglas Drive. And I've always thought that's a very dangerous place to put it because that's a big hill there, and because the other crossing is only a few hundred feet away. And this is, to me, is another reason not to go ahead with that until we we know exactly where the school's going to be and what the need might be for that crossing.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions from the board regarding school? All right. Amy, is that it?
That's it.
All right. Next on the agenda is committee reports. Any board member want to add to their report?
I'm going
Right.
to
Supervisor Whitman?
I'd like to make two brief comments. I have two reports that I have not written. There are a couple of points that we need to know, and you'll be hearing about them from other sources. So the Facilities Committee, the Climate Action Sustainability Committee approved a contract for a new waste hauler. It's Bergmeyer's. There's a considerable increase from the previous contract, but it has nothing, but both contract submitters had this similar increase in price. Bergmeyer's was $7 a month less than Waste Management. There is going to be a considerable education hump that we will all have to navigate, and it has to do with bulk waste. So no matter, if you looked at both contracts, the bulk waste is considerably changed from what it was. I'm not going to go into the details right now. You'll get it either at general forum, and I'll certainly have it in the report. I apologize for not having that. And then I did wanted to give a just brief update on the Facilities Committee, that we had a very open-ended discussion on what I kind of call satellite level suggestions on what would guide the agencies. Am I saying that right? Yeah, like the library. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry,
The
for some
agencies,
reason that didn't sound right.
Yes.
On making their decisions, and we said, well, gosh, we don't know, how much a parking lot costs and whether that's important, but what we do know are these, as I say, bird's eye or satellite eye view things values that are important, like public safety, health and safety, and that, looking at funding source alternatives, what the public's perception of a project is, looking at the depreciation of an object versus the lifespan of it or operational life and so on and so forth. And then sustainability also is going to be an envelope thing. So I'll have that. But it was something that the committee had never done before. We've been waiting to go to the agencies and have them propose projects, and they were kind of waiting for guidance from us. So it was a very interesting discussion, I will say, for having done it. The committee's only 5 years old. It was, the formation of the committee was prompted by this realization that we have a lot of facilities that we own, that COG owns, and they're depreciating, getting old. As it turns out now, what we're looking at for the CIP is not just facilities, but all sorts of assets that we own. So we'll be looking at vehicles too. So it was really a very interesting it's a sort of process for the committee, and it'll have some, I think, really nice, give some nice direction, a little more direction. But again, it's going to be a tough process this year. So, okay, thank you for that, and I apologize for not having it written.
Any other supervisors? I see a lot of our meetings have been canceled for public safety. We had a EMS legislation breakfast with the EMS. I do recall, Amy, we're due to have a tour in April with the EMS.
Yeah, I believe so. And also, Jonathan is going to come, our new emergency management coordinator, to your April 10th meeting and give you an overview of how we do emergency management. He has a great bunch of resources for everybody and a very good presentation. So he'll be in the April 10th meeting.
Great. I know Larry and myself will be at the Finance Committee meeting tomorrow. We also will have an update at our next board meeting with the public safety meeting, since we had to cancel that yesterday. I have an executive board meeting on March 19th before our general forum meeting, so I'll be doing reports afterward. Any other report? All right, seeing none. Next on our agenda is other business. Is there any other business? And if there are not, next on the agenda is the adjournment. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Yep. Second.
Oh, there's no discussion on,
You don't need
There
to.
ain't no discussion?
no discussion, all in
Well, I
favor?
don't know if CNET wants to leave yet.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. This meeting is now adjourned.
Let it be noted